Yo, yo, yo. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This is another show. We're going to talk Dallas Cowboys as well. We all know that we had a nice victory. A win is a win is a win is a win. But today we're just going to try to get it all in. I have Darreck on the other end. Darreck, salute to you.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Fine, man. It's going great. It's one of those things, man. As soon as I'm ready to do some draft talking, and look at some prospects out there, our team shows up and show out. What are your impressions on this last game?
I was very happy to be wrong about this. I've been pretty good this season on picking wins and losses. I was very happy to be wrong on this one. I thought Washington was going to take it to them, and the main reason for that was the shakeup at cornerback, sitting down Anthony Brown. We hadn't really seen anything out of Cheeto yet, so I thought maybe he was going to struggle some there. And I just thought that the problems this team had shown without Zeke, I thought it was going to take more than 1 week to fix after they kind of reached that pivotal point. So very happy to be wrong with this. There is still a lot left to be desired with regard to the passing game, but at least they stuck to their identity in the run game, and they were able to lean on that offensive line to get a much-needed win.
Yes, indeed. So everybody, I guess, post the year 2000 and what have you, since the Kurt Warner years and I guess Tom Brady era is still going on, and Peyton Manning, everybody thinks that you have to only win through the ball, through the air. A good ground and pound type of game. It's always needed in this NFL, and I really think that even if Dak Prescott average 125 or 100, 200 yards passing, it's still good to have a victory out there as long as he don't have the turnover. So I would take this win every Sunday, any Sunday.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. As long as you're winning, I don't care what the numbers look like. As long as you're winning, it's one of those things, though, that I think even with even with the run game doing better this week, I think it is still something where they were hurt by not being able to really. They're not as threatening because they don't have the same explosive threat. And as a result, teams they're not biting on play action the same way. And so you have the receivers getting a lot of attention. And basically the Dallas offense just said, okay, we might only be getting, 4.5, 5 yards a pop. But you know what? String 2 or 3 of those together and you're still moving the chains. You don't have to hit the home run ball or anything like that. So kudos to them for at least sticking with what was working at that point. In the second half, they really dialed it back in terms of passing attempts, it seemed like. So, stick with what works for you. That's what matters. You want to see those numbers improve for Dak, but at the same time, all that really matters is wins and losses.
Yes, indeed. So at the end of the day, it's a W. So moving forward speedily, this Eagles game yesterday, he only had one job to do, and that was to win, and they ended up losing yesterday. So
yep.
The impact of that is it's going to be like, at the end of the day, we control our own destiny. We got to win out. We can't lean on other teams to lose. Can't lean on other teams to win. So with that in mind, how you think this thing going to shake up? You mentioned before 8-8, but do you have some reservations on that, or this is the closest game we saw to us playing the past week to the Kansas City game? This was the closest game that we played to that level. So do you think that this team is more so the Kansas City level, or it was to what we had seen the previous weeks?
I don't think it's the Kansas City level. I think, again, you got to take care of your own business. Mm-hmm. So you needed the win regardless. But I do think they were aided by the fact that the Redskins have roughly 14 players injured and things like that. I think that certainly played a role in it. Again, you got to take care of your own business. So regardless, the important thing is that you won and built a little bit of confidence and momentum behind you. But I feel that had this been a game, like had this been Seattle or even Oakland or something like that, I would have had serious reservations about where the team kind of stacks up and all of that. I don't know that I would say they control their destiny at this point, though. The general consensus is most years, if you reach 10 wins, you're in. The problem with that is that the Cowboys are in a situation where they don't have they don't own the tiebreaker with several key teams. Atlanta, Seattle, They're in a bad situation there. They're 2 games back of Seattle for that wild card spot with 4 to play. That was, as you mentioned, the big loss for Seattle trouncing the Eagles yesterday. So really what the Cowboys need is in the next 2 weeks, they need either, and both of which, by the way, are totally possible. They need either Jacksonville at Jacksonville to beat the Seahawks. Again, with that defense, I really think it's possible, especially the Seahawks have been uneven on the road this year. Or the Seahawks host the LA Rams, who have been really one of the big surprise teams this year. If they lose one of those games and then Dallas can just get past the Giants, get past Oakland, I know that's saying a lot because our longest win streak of the year is 3 games. But if they get to that level, then they have a chance to go into Seattle. Or no, Seattle, I think, comes here.
Yeah, that's just the difference there.
Yeah, I believe that's the case. But that would be basically the chance for that second game you have to make up. And then you would also own the tiebreaker. So that's a huge point for Dallas. Dallas has to roll off 2 more wins and then hope Seattle trips up in one of those 2 so that they can overtake them in Dallas.
No doubt. So, and then we got to understand too as well, Green Bay can't win out too as well, right? That's the other. Green Bay looks like they're finally kind of finding their footing a little bit with Hundley. I still think they got 2 more games before Aaron Rodgers is eligible to return. So I don't know there. I haven't seen enough tape on them to really know anything beyond just what I see in terms of scoreboard. But yeah, I think Seattle is probably your biggest threat, and Atlanta's creeping around in there. I know they just got beat by the Vikings yesterday as well. Yeah, at some point, looking back at revisionist history, right? Consistency is consistency, right? And in this NFL, there's been 2 teams that I know for sure have been consistent. The New England Patriots been consistently winning, right? We can put that out there in the atmosphere. The Cleveland Browns been consistently losing, regardless of what happened. Every year they consistently lose. Now, this is the other kicker. The Philadelphia Eagles. They always sometimes implode on themselves. So, not trying to say that this last game will be like a blueprint on how they can be exposed and how they can lose, because I do know the Fly Eagles, Fly chant is going to be, we want Dallas, we want this, we are the best, we are this and that. But what if, and I'm looking at the chat box, what if the Eagles lose out, right?
Lose out?
Yeah, what if they lose out?
I don't know that I would bank on that one. The big important thing to note with the Eagles, we've been kind of under the assumption the last couple weeks that if we can get to that game in Philadelphia week 17, it's going to be like the flip of last year where we had nothing to play for and therefore we rested all our guys and the Eagles won the game. We assumed this was going to be the opposite side of that coin with the Eagles not needing it. But with their loss yesterday, the Eagles are actually now in second in the NFC. The Vikings have actually overtaken them by means of tiebreaker. So depending on how this next couple of weeks shake out, it might have been an incorrect assumption that game won't mean anything to the Eagles. If they can get the 1 seed, they're going to do it. They're going to go all out.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things. So, all right, so if the Eagles lose out, then that would be the scenario there. And if they try to win out and try to get that 1 seed, then they may not rest their starters towards the end of the game or end of the week, I meant to say, or end of the season. So that could be like a situation there. But if this team, like I said before, the Green Bay Packers play the Cleveland Browns next week, and they've been consistently losing. So you might as well put a W in the win column there for the Green Bay, regardless of who the quarterback is for Green Bay, right? Even they
generally,
yeah. So generally, so they're going to win that game. I do know that I think Aaron Rodgers come back the following game.
Yeah.
So that could be nightmarish for us, because then he can yell out and say RELAX, relax or something like that. He can start doing that type of talking. He can get out there and just start lighting fire, and you just don't want a hot Aaron Rodgers around that time frame. So so it's just one of those things. Whereas I'm trying to say, if this team doesn't show the same type of poise, the same type of defensive strategy like they played last week. I know it was against Scrubs, but this is a no excuse business. We saw we just witnessed last night the Seahawks play without their starters, without Cam Chancellor, without
Hmm.
what's the guy number?
Sherman.
Richard Sherman. They play without these guys, so they still look formidable on the actual defensive side of the ball. We
Hmm.
got to actually come out there, and I think they was missing some elements too as well, as far as the offensive line.
Yeah,
So this team,
their offensive line is not very good.
right? So this team had no excuses out there. They played the best team according to the NFL Index, what have you. They played the best team in the NFL, and then they kind of like showed no weakness on their side of the ball.
Yeah, Seattle's a different team at home than they are on the road. I also think that the fact is they were fighting for their lives, really, their playoff lives yesterday. That was a win they really needed to give themselves some padding. And the Eagles, at the time, coming off 7 or 8 straight wins, they didn't need the game. Like, they would have liked to have had it, sure. I mean, it's not like they laid down, but I didn't get the same feel of desperation at all from them, and I think that was really prevalent throughout that game, especially the second half. It just looked like Seattle wanted it more.
Yes, indeed. So when we play the Giants, and we do know that I don't know whether or not they're going to have their head coach next week. I don't know whether or not he's going to be
He's
there.
fired,
He's fired already?
and the GM today.
They fired both of them? I didn't even
Yep.
know.
Hey, how about this little kernel of greatness too? So Steve Spagnuolo is the interim head coach. They've determined for next week Eli Manning as their starter. So the only purpose of benching him last week was to break that 210 game streak.
Oh, wow. But,
Yeah.
but Steve Spag, he still scares me out there with
Yeah.
Dak not having his best friend,
Well, you can kind of hope he'll still be calling defensive plays, so that's still concerning. But you can kind of hope that being head coach, maybe it shifts a little bit of the attention. You know what I mean? Like
The preparation.
that's yeah, where you're kind of spread a little bit thin, and it's hard to kind of account for both at the same quality level. Well, who knows? It's a division rival game, so Giants will probably get up for it, even though they're 2-10. But yeah, they let go of their head coach McAdoo and their GM today, and for good reason, especially McAdoo.
But this is crazy because last year was his first year, right? And this is his second year, right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
so there goes to show you, Cowboys Nation fans. This coach was 11-5 last year, and now he's looking for it. Now he's looking for a job. Ain't that something?
Well, yeah. I mean, with his record this year, he fell back to 500 basically. It's one of those, or really under. So to me, it's one of those things where he came in as an offensive guru, right? He was the
Mhm.
Packers offensive coordinator. I think he was the coordinator for their Super Bowl win, and he got a lot of credit for that Packers offense and everything. That's orchestrated by Aaron Rodgers. It helped that he had Aaron Rodgers, but all the same, he was brought in to instill that same kind of dynamic offense to New York. And I saw a stat earlier today that in his entire tenure with the Giants reached 28 points or more 0 times. And in that same stretch of time, Atlanta and New Orleans combined for 15 such occasions of 28 points or more.
Mm.
So, and you look at the firepower they had. Now, granted, their offensive line was a dumpster fire. I think that was a big part of their problem this year. But Odell Beckham, Sterling Shepard, Brandon Marshall was a short-term thing this year before he got hurt. Brandon Ingram, they had parts. They had explosive weapons all around them. And to not get one game of 28 points, like that's shocking to me. I mean, that seems like you played the Browns along the way. You know what I mean? You should have gotten it.
Yeah, they did. They should have gotten it. But there's $200 million defense out there, and some other things that they got in the mix as far as this offensive power. I was penciling them in for as I just didn't see the Eagles coming the way they are, and for a second, I thought that what's the name was going to be an issue, the Redskins, and they just imploded on them. So it's just one of those things where it's just one of those things where I hope that if we can win out and we can find that spark, and maybe we can have something to show for as far as this next run. But if not, then this season will be a wash for us too as well.
Yeah, I felt coming into the season. Now, I did think the Giants were the biggest threat. In fact, I actually had them because of our schedule. I had them penciled in to win the East. So again, shows I'm not always right with predictions. That was on face value one of my worst ones. I did think the Eagles were going to be legit this year, though. I knew they were going to be better than last year. I didn't know that they were going to be this good, but I certainly had them around that 10-11 win margin. So, yeah, it's a tough division. I think Washington, you lost 2,000-yard receivers, and you brought in Terrell Pryor, who's not a strong route runner, and he's athletic, but not especially fast. So it's kind of one of those things where I didn't really feel that he was a good fit for them. And I've actually seen written a couple different places saying he's probably not even going to be back next year with the Redskins.
Yeah, there's something to think about there too as well. If he's not going to be back, then what a disaster of a deal there.
I would take him.
Me too.
Hey man, what have we been saying? We need explosive players on this offense, and we've gone stagnant at the receiver position.
There's some way somehow and I don't think the draft may be the option, but at the same time we got to go through growing pains. So yeah, in my opinion, the free agency may be a route to go, but we'll see how this team. I think they've been snake bitten. I think they're scared a little bit with the free agency. And they always try to mix and mingle with these prospect type of players, or suspect type of players, to be in lack of better words. So moving forward towards this next game, looking back at the injury report, do you have it in front of you, or do you have the injury report?
I don't, but I can get it real quick. The injury report for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think Skandrick is out, right?
Yeah, so he has a couple transverse process fractures in his back. If you actually look back to the 2014 season when Romo missed that Arizona game, that's what he had. He had one of those. Skandrick has two. But because it's a 10-day break, Romo had 7 days. They gave him the week off because of his back history and everything. But because it's 10 days, Skandrick's kind of in that borderline, but he's expected to most likely miss at least this game. Sean Lee will be back, is everything I'm reading. He's practicing. He's going to be practicing this week, and the expectation is that he will be back. So that will be a lift for the defense.
Okay, so if Sean Lee back, then yes, we in a better grace. So I would slide or kick Byron Jones to cornerback. Roll.
Okay, I got the report here now.
Okay, what you got?
So Lyle Collins is still listed as questionable due to his back. Malik Collins questionable for his foot. Durant questionable for concussion. Hitchens groin, which that was the case last week, and he still played, so that's hopeful. Sean Lee, I think this is talking about with regard to practice. It's still talking about the hamstring and out, but again, everything I've heard, even just today, suggests that he was close at the Washington game, but they were still going to give him until this next week. Switzer, ankle, nothing else significant in that regard. So it looks like for the most part, you're getting your guys back. I'd be curious to see more on Malik Collins because I wasn't aware he was dealing with a foot problem.
It's one of those things. So that's probably be the reason why his production has faltered or fell below what we thought that he was going to be at this year.
Yeah.
And that just come with it, and that's just things that happen out there. This football game is a war of nutrition, and that's just been our Achilles heel for a majority part of this year. You can only imagine if Sean Lee was able to play every game,
Oh, hey, here's something I just stumbled across that was posted 6 hours ago. Rico Gathers will not return for Cowboys in 2017.
Yes. Yeah, I was just talking about that, the war of nutrition, right? And
attrition, yeah.
Attrition, I meant to say attrition, yeah. Well, nutrition too.
Healthy diet.
This diet out there as far as these hamstrings, I don't know what they need to eat more, flax seeds or something like that, so that they can stay healthy out there. One of the things that I'm thinking about here is that I think that's I can't say false report, but it's got to be something different, more to that,
Yeah, man, for a concussion and to be out 4 months, if a concussion has had you out 4 months, man, you should be considering retirement at that point because that's the worst concussion ever. So I don't know what more there is to that, but that is very strange. And I saw someone today tweeted at Jean Jacques Taylor at ESPN Dallas or on ESPN Dallas radio and asked him about it, and he just kind of brushed it off too, like, "Oh, he's got a concussion." Everyone's kind of like, and like, there has to be more to it than that. That or this is a way worse concussion than you're telling us because I haven't heard any other record of him in his couple years with the Cowboys dealing with concussions or anything. So I don't know. That's a big red flag if he's still dealing with concussion symptoms after 4 months.
Right, it's just too long of a time. I just feel it. I really think that this team just does so much of coddling their players. When it comes to things like that, and I just don't like that. At some point you got to kick the can on some of these veteran players. Not saying I know that people are gonna say, "Well, you see, Dez Bryant caught that pass in the end zone last week, and you were talking
Yeah.
about trading him." I was like, "No, I was never talking about trading him." But what I was saying is that at some point you got to have your understudy in there. You can't wait too long for the players to get long in the tooth, just like the Jason Wittens of the world. And at this point, I mean, we have to be figuring out something. I love our left tackle, but I'm not saying that we got to trade him. But what I'm saying is that this draft coming up, we got to figure out who can be the step in for the left tackle, because having a back injury like Tyron Smith have, that's something that probably won't go away, and you just can't wait for the house to burn all the way down. You see it catching on fire, you got to do something.
Right. I would say because of his age and the fact that surgery hasn't been tried yet, that maybe it's a little early to look that route. I think he's still like 26, 27. Like he's
Right.
still pretty young considering how long he's been around. And I know that the last couple of years, it's been the last 2 years he's been dealing with it. He had it 1 year, tried to, let it just heal with rest. And as this season showed very early on, that wasn't going to be the case, but he still has to make it through this year. So really, this next off season, this upcoming off season, I'm sure he'll have to at that point have the surgery. If he comes out next year and doesn't look right, or for some reason they don't do the surgery and he still doesn't look right next year, then that's when I probably start, really putting that red flag and waving it in the air. So for now, I'm willing to just bet that they've had one off season in the middle of that, and they took a guess, and the guess was wrong, but it's not the end of the world yet,
Mm-hmm. People in the chat box are stating that actually he has a brain swelling, and it's the same deal that kept Luke Kuechly, I think that's how you say it.
Kuechly?
Yeah, out for a year. But yeah,
Jeez.
so if he has those type of issues,
Yeah.
and I know the guy that hit him, there was Kevon Frazier. So not saying that we want Kevon Frazier to be out there knocking people out, but that just goes to show you that guy.
That's serious stuff, man.
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame him for keeping him out. I saw Stephen Jones was on The Fan today, and when asked about Gathers, just said that probably the best thing for him would be to start fresh in the off season. So they're not even having him participate in anything. Like it's not just avoiding contact. Like they have him shut down.
Well, yeah. So I take back my words, Dan, of us coddling players. But at some point in time, we have to have understudies, and and we saw one understudy. I know Martellus Bennett. He was the quote unquote cancer in the locker room at some point. So, and we saw him go off and do things with other teams and actually have him hardware. So. And not saying that the guys that used to be on the team, when they leave, the understudy that we do manage to get, they go to another team. But at some point, we have to put and utilize them more and more into our systems.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You always got to have depth. Depth is obviously the whole key to the game. And really, it's not about the teams that have the most star power most of the time. It's the teams who draft well. For those middle of the road guys on their team, right? And that's why you see that's part of the Patriots' continued excellence over the last decade plus, is that they're really good at finding those guys, through the middle and bottom part of their roster. And, it it works it's when you have that much depth that you can actually buy into the next man up philosophy. Right now with Dallas, we see how losing one or two particular cogs in the wheel, everything falls apart.
Yes.
Like you can say next man up, but if you don't have the depth to be compatible or comparable in quality, then it's just hollow words at that point.
Yeah. So, well, it's just one of those things. So, this roster, the good bright side of it is that this secondary is looking promising now. I'm looking at when I looked at film on Kayvon Frazier, when I looked at film of the Jordan Lewises of the worlds and the Chidobe Awuzie. These guys look like they can step it up, and it looks like the Xavier Woods, he's learning. I do know a lot of people think that he should play more out there in the system, but he's one of the guys who plays with basic instincts, basically out there on the field. So he's one of those guys that is going to take a maybe year 2 or maybe year 3 before he's just really jumping out at the pages at you or jumping out on the film. We do see flashes at times, but we do see poor angles, and we do see his size and his frame just need to add a little bit muscle or a little bit more weight to his frame in order for him to be a better impact out there.
Yeah, definitely. And we've seen some occasions where he's missed a tackle or taken a poor angle. Maybe it was the Atlanta game. There was a couple times where he just whiffed on a play, and you're like, you're a rook, so that's not shocking, but it is something that you're going to have to learn and correct that, obviously. So yeah, I think him being a 6th round pick, that doesn't shock me in the least that he's going to take some grooming.
Yeah, so it's going to take some time, and I did a video earlier on Kayvon Frazier, and I was saying maybe he could be the next Cam Chancellor, right? And I know I got a lot of people saying, "Well, wait a minute, but people fail to realize they're looking at the Cam Chancellor of now. He was a 5th round pick too as well, and although he played in a different scheme, played for a different team, a different type of coaching, he had more snaps. His first year, he only showed on the index board of 10 tackles. So there goes to show you sometimes it takes time for a player to fill in, grow up, and be able to play on this next level. Now, will he be the Cam Chancellors of the world? No, I'm not saying that's going to be his ceiling, but it could be possible. If he just get more playing time out there.
Yeah, you never know how these guys are going to develop. All you can do is look at the tools and make assessments based on what you see. And I watched your breakdown earlier, and I see some of the stuff you're talking about there. So yeah, he certainly could develop, with a similar kind of trajectory. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to reach the levels of Cam Chancellor now, but it means that he has, the potential to get in that kind of ballpark.
Yeah, so that's what it's all about. Seeing the prospect, seeing the ability that the players have down the line, and just try to make those comparable so that you can understand what this skill set the player may have. So if we're looking at from Dak Prescott all the way down through the offensive line, all the way down through the running back and the actual receivers of this core, the area that we need to improve on, and I would say this wholeheartedly, will be the wide receiving core. We don't have anybody that we can look down the line and say, okay, this player is comparable to this,
right.
And it's just one of those things. Now, I do know Ryan Switzer. He's one of those explosive guys out there that I was looking for, because previously, before this last game, we just really had nobody else making plays out there. Cole Beasley, he can do the things out there from 1 to 6 yards out there, but anything beyond that, playing to the outside, is just one of those things. Whereas we didn't see the explosiveness out there for him. But Ryan Switzer, I don't know whether or not he knows the playbook or not, but we need to see a little bit more of him outside of the reverse sweep, and I think that he can be a weapon beyond the kickoff and punt returns.
Oh, absolutely. That's what we were told, right? We were told that in mini camp and everything, that he was the most impressive rookie in mini camp. And we kept hearing, the Cowboys coaching staff, they're not just seeing him as a Cole Beasley insurance policy. they're actually scheming ways to get him and Cole on the field at the same time. Because if you got two quick, the Patriots, they have that model, right? You have two nimble-footed slot receivers, very quick-footed, good with quick breaks and everything. To take one team can take away one of those guys, and we've seen that with Cole. He's struggled this year, and he's been more or less neutralized by various rolling coverage or bracketing or whatever. And if you put another guy on the other side, you can do the same thing. How do you guard that? How do you take both away at the same time without leaving someone like Dez or Terrence Williams wide open? And so that's really the thing there. They need to do it. I don't know why he hasn't been incorporated in anything more. We've seen a couple jet sweeps, and even those haven't been that impactful yet. So I want to see him be more than just a lucky Whitehead to be an actual weapon. And really, I mean, you saw in his kickoff return against Washington, which I meant to call out earlier. He finally ran one back like we've been waiting on all this time. But you saw his speed and quickness there. He's got the burst and explosiveness. And if they can just find a way to get him in open space with the ball, he can make some stuff happen.
Creativity, they'll make it happen. And by just like I said, if we don't go out and just figure out things like that, because we know Bryce Butler, we know what his ceiling is right now at this point. We know what Terrence Williams' ceiling is at this point. At some point we got to figure out where can a guy can be a little bit more explosive, give us a little bit more threat out there on the edges, and that's something we have to look at in this draft. I see some people yelling out Calvin Ridley. I don't know whether or not you saw him play out there. I think he played for Alabama. Is that correct?
Maybe. I'm not as familiar with Alabama's roster.
Right. I think he played for Calvin Ridley. Sound familiar, though. I haven't really looked at his film, but we just never know how that's going to transpire or where we're going to be picking at in the draft. So it's just too soon for us to say that. But it's just one of those things, as I'm looking at it, this versus what we're going to have to face down the line, these next 4 games, how are we going to be able to approach the game, how are we going to attack down the field, even if we find our way to get into the playoff, what are our strategy, what is our identity, and I hope it'll be run, the running the ball, attack, take time off for the defense so we can have well-rested players out there and have our front forward to be hungry and attacking and being aggressive out there. Hopefully that's our philosophy. Hopefully that is,
Mm-hmm. So what are you thinking early here? I know it's a little late for us getting to this kind of Redskins follow-up, but what do you think looking forward to the Giants? Do you think it's a tougher game just being that it's a divisional game, division rival, even though they're 2-10? Or do you think Dallas kind of keeps going with what it did against Washington and just handles business, even if it's in a kind of vanilla offense sort of way?
I really think that this need to be a game whereas we see it's going to be a tough game regardless, It's just a rivalry game. A lot of people have pride on the line, and when we do remember before, there was a big blowout between the Green Bay Packers and the Cowboys one year, and they fired the coach, and the next game, they brought Jason Garrett in, and he was able to beat whatever team that was out there. Sometimes you have a spark from the team when they let their head coach go, So I'm not going to be surprised if they have that type of spark out there. But at the same time, what I want to see is I want to see a little bit more of Cheeto Awuzie. I want to see can he back up the week that he had before. I want to see the same thing with Kevon Frazier. I want to see him being more implemented out there with the game. I want to see Dak Prescott being careful with the ball. And I want to see this running attack again with the stutter step in the hole, find the press in the hole with Alfred Morris. I hope he able to get another 100-yard rushing.
Yeah, Morris had a really good game for them against Washington, and I'm sure that was great for him against his old team and everything. I think the important thing is Dak taking care of the ball and the offensive line kind of imposing its will in a way that allows Alfred Morris to just keep the chains moving. We've said before he's not going to hit you the home run ball. I know one time this year he had a 71-yard run or something crazy like that. I think that was the Rams game. But he's not going to give you the home run ball. He's not Zeke, but we don't need a Ferrari right now. All we need, even if it's a station wagon, is just something that can move and get us where we need to go. So yeah, old reliable, whatever you want to call Alfred Morris, as long as he can help us keep this thing on the rails and get us another win, I'm all for it.
A win is a win is a win. So if we win, it should be like if we win, we should win with a dominant, presence. Now, if we lose, it should be one of those close games. It shouldn't be one of those games where we looking back at each other saying, "Wow, what is this team?" So hopefully, if they can patch up some things together, and then how many more games we have for Zeke to be gone?
Oh, two. We got Giants and we got I think it's at Oakland.
So 2 more games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, we got to find a way, man. Somehow scratch, crawl, bite, fight, and get this win, get this W.
Yep. It's going to be tough. I mean, I know Oakland hasn't looked anything like the Oakland we saw last year, but they've got some firepower to them. Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree will be back from suspension by then. I think he's suspended this next week as well for that fight he got into with who was that? Was it Aqib Talib?
Yeah, Aqib Talib. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's out this week as well. He'll be back, go figure, just in time for the Cowboys. So yeah, guys like Cheeto and Jordan Lewis, heck, even the much maligned this season, Anthony Brown is probably going to have to shore up the protection and everything, and they're just going to have to try and hold their ground. I know Marshawn Lynch, he got a year off, something like that, in his brief retirement. I'm not as worried about Lynch as I used to be. Maybe in goal line situations, but I don't think he's he's not a home run hitter and he can bruise you in short yardage situation. I'm not especially worried about him going for triple digit, yardage totals on us.
Well, we'll see and we'll find out. But as long as we have Sean Lee out there, I wouldn't worry at all. So he's going to be that guy that's going to just point out to the defense and say, "Hey, line up here, place yourself there, come down in the box." So he's going to be the quarterback of the defense. So hopefully he can stay healthy. The war of attrition, right?
Yep.
So if he can stay healthy and if the other players can stay healthy, and then somebody can step up and show the fact that we can play without Scandrick. So that's going to be something else too as well that we have to have our thoughts and our minds on.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how many games we're looking at maybe without Scandrick, but he is a veteran and he does bring some real attitude and kind of swagger to the defense. So yeah, you want to have him out there. It's obviously not as critical as missing like Sean Lee or something like that, but you definitely want to get him back as soon as you can.
Yes, indeed. So as we about to wrap this thing up, I just want to be able to bring out this thing right here, Darreck, the intangible award again. Who was the intangible guy last week?
The intangible guy in the Cowboys Redskins game. Well, the obvious answer would be Alfred Morris, but we kind of looked for the guy who surprised people. So I'm going to give it to Switzer, just because I know that we've both been pretty critical of him the past few weeks, especially as our patience wore a little thin with him, just kind of looking lost on returns and things like that, knowing when to fair catch, when to take a knee in the end zone, all that. So his run back, I really think that was the moment when the Cowboys' attitude shifted, because Dak had just gone back to get x-rays on his hand. The offense had been really, really stagnant despite the defense creating turnovers. I think he was the spark that let that whole thing go.
No doubt. So let's just continue to doubt this guy. Maybe that's the way, because remember we were saying this is the game he's going to have X amount of yards. He's going to show up and
Mhm.
give us kickoff return and a punt return. So let's just keep doubting this kid so that he can continue to do good, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, my intangible guy would be the guy that we just didn't really see coming out doing these type of things would be Cheeto Bay Awuzie. He flew,
Excellent answer. Yeah.
yeah, he flew out to the ball. He was able to stop those slants, so playing the middle of the field, and those are
Hmm.
things that I saw when I was looking at the film. This guy was just flying everywhere to the ball and being aggressive and being a sure tackler out there in space. You put him and you talking about Jordan Lewis. Now Jordan Lewis is tiny, you know, but
Yeah.
Awuzie is slightly, you know, not slightly bigger. Awuzie is big, you know. I think he's 205, maybe 210 as a cornerback, something like that. So I just looked at him and I said, man, this guy, you know, is flying out to the ball. He's doing his thing. So hopefully he can match that up with the next week and against the Giants. Maybe he can actually pick off a ball this week coming up, you know.
Yeah. That would be that'd be huge. And if they're playing Eli, who knows? Um, maybe he doesn't have his normal weapon, so maybe that's in the cards for him to throw a couple. And even if they don't play him, even if they play Geno, that still looks ripe for the picking.
Right. And Eli and Kirk Cousins is the same person to me. I just think Kirk Cousins is at this stage of his career is a little bit more elusive, can get out and
Right.
roll out and all this. I don't think Eli can do that at this age. So it should
Yeah.
be one of those games where we can have at least two picks, you know, two interceptions, and maybe we can find a way to get maybe a fumble, you know, something like that.
Right. Yeah. Agreed.
So what's your score prediction before we run?
Okay. Score prediction. Based on what we know right now, which is Eli starting, Sean Lee back, I'm going to say Dallas gets another win. I'm going to say to the tune of 31-13.
31-13. Somebody put 31-10 in the board. So if it's a 31 type of game, if we can get back to the graces of scoring 31 some odd points, that'd be a plus. I have us at 24 to maybe, I say 24-10. How about
Yeah.
that? You know, I'll keep it like that then. So 24-13, somebody else put that out there in the chat box too as well. So, hey, you guys post your predictions once this video has been posted. That's where we can look back and reflect and see who was right and who was wrong. All right, so do you predict, before we go to as well, Darreck, do you predict us winning out or do you predict the 8-8 again?
I'm walking back the 8-8,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not predicting us winning out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm predicting we win against the Giants, trip up at Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
It's either Oakland or Seattle. One of those two we lose. I don't know which. I don't know if they get to Seattle and then are just a little bit overwhelmed or what. But I have us losing one more. I got 9-7.
9-7. That seems legit. I have us winning out, you know. So
Yeah.
somehow, some way, we went out. We catch.
Yeah.
A spark.
The important thing to remember there is even if we win out, there's no guarantee we make it because of all the tiebreakers we don't own. So you could win out and still not make it at 10-6. So it'd be great to win out and just to have your hat in the ring and be there at the final second. But we got to see. We don't want to watch scoreboarding. Just take care of your own business. But at the same time, you got to have some stuff fall into place for you.
We went out and the Eagles turns into Kansas City and they just start losing, you know.
Yeah.
Oh man, Darreck, where can they find you at? Because a lot of people are asking where can they subscribe to Darreck.
So on YouTube, our channel is the Dallas Prospect. The website is thedallasprospect.com. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter at Dallas Prospect, just general sports and pop culture. So we got your Big 12 football, we got Dallas Cowboys, Texas Rangers, Dallas Mavericks. On the pop culture side, we'll gaming, film reviews, comics, all that jazz. Pretty much just a hub for anything that interests me and other people, pretty much. So, yeah, check us out.
I think I lost you. He was going on a roll there. So, you guys, if you were able to hear him, check him out at those sites there. And you guys know where you can find Law Nations. You can also check me out too as well on Facebook, Twitter at the Law Nations, Laws Nation. So that's where you can find me out. I hope that you guys are following the channel. That's been my time, guys. I really thank you guys for yours. And remember, you're listening to nothing but the best. Salute. I'm out. Peace.
Hey, Law.
Oh, you back? What's going on? We still rolling live right now, so they
nice.
lost you on the Twitter part. So,
okay, yeah, I don't know what happened with that. Yeah, Twitter at Dallas Prospect. So,
Twitter,
yeah,
at
pretty
Dallas
much.
Prospect.
Yep,
Are you
much give us a follow?
Are you a Marvel guy or DC? Who wins?
Ooh, man, DC has obviously the big 1-2 with Superman, Batman. Fan of Wonder Woman and the General Justice League as well. I'll say this, in terms of cinematic universe, like films, Marvel has it for me. I would say probably of my 3 favorite superheroes, I'd probably tell you Batman, Superman, and then flip over to Marvel side and say Spider-Man. So that it's pretty balanced. I lean DC in every way except how the films have been executed comparatively to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
They was telling me that DC is supposed to be this dark, gothic type of picture showing. I'm telling you, when they took away Christian Bale, I don't know what the contract dispute was. They could have figured out something, because I can only imagine how this thing would have flipped out or went out without Ben Affleck and they had Christian Bale out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting as well with our question. Are we still on? Are we still on air?
Yeah, we still live.
Okay. I was just like wondering how formal to be here.
It's good. It's good. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah. So with Batman versus Superman, that got a lot of backlash and everything. It was exceedingly dark. Even for like Superman, he came across kind of more petulant and bitter and things like that. And I think they were trying to set him up as just showing more his flaws and everything like that. But I think it rubbed some people kind of the wrong way. And you saw that with Justice League. Now, obviously, that had 2 directors, including Joss Whedon, who came from the Avengers with Marvel. His last Marvel movie was Avengers 2, Age of Ultron.
No,
so they brought... Yeah. So they brought him...
Oh, man, we lost you again. But the Dark Knight was everything. The Joker was everything. Why so serious? All right, man. We got a lot of people talking about it. They like DC. Marvel has been deeper. Shout out to Amos and Belly, Davian Rodriguez. Well, you guys decide too as well. Who do you guys like more, Marvel or DC? Who wins? And then you can put characters. Can Superman actually beat the Hulk? The Hulk versus Superman. Or the Thor versus Batman. Those type of things. If you just start thinking about, how can Batman knows everybody's weakness, and how he'll figure out Thor's weakness. There'll be a crazy type of movie, There'll be something crazy to think about. Marvel versus, DC. That will be a good movie. That will be a good thing to pitch out. But that's been our time again, guys. You have a good day and a better tomorrow.
Yo.
Hey, every time I'm about to wrap it up.
Nah, we can call it a wrap. If you guys want, we can do some pop culture podcast down the road here for you. But yeah, I'll have to figure out what's going on with my mic. It keeps dropping out.